Hi, folks. Having a good day today. Let me first welcome you to Autism Rocks and Rolls. Now, before we begin, I must note that I'm not a doctor psychiatrist. If you're starting to be diagnosed with autism, please see a physician. Always based on my experiences. I also have the right to the intro natural that I found on ytmp3.com. I also have a mission to interview with all of you. The mission of Autism Rocks and Rolls is to take the stigma off of autism and other conditions that may think are disabilities. People on the spectrum are not broken and do not need to be fixed. Those who have conditions or abilities who want to be pitied, there's nothing to be sorry about. It also has some people I like to thank. A connection that must be brought up is Amanda Boyd Russell from Legal Shield and Jelly Social. Amanda is a woman committed to assisting individuals and small businesses through Legal Shield and Jelly Social. She fosters a welcoming professional environment while also providing affordable and convenient and conveniently accessible legal services. Her ambition to build a community of like-minded people and make the legal system simpler motivated her to transition from job to company. The launch of Legal Shield and Jelly Roll is a brave step up toward freedom and progress. Later on, you may hear from her. ARA has done a lot of events lately. First, we did our first of 2 special needs nights at the Fowler Pumpkin Patch. It was a beautiful day in and out. An extra thanks goes to Perry and Renee Fowler for letting us do this. Then I got the chance to speak at the Doing Well by Doing Good Summit, produced by Michael Whitehouse. It was about entrepreneurs who do philanthropic work. Thank you, Michael, for letting me share my story, and I cannot wait to do it again in November. The final event was when we teamed up with Bloomington Rival Showdown Professional Wrestling Company by being a vendor. That is not all. I had the privilege of living a boyhood dream by being a guest ring announcer. An extra thank you goes to Matthew Mounts and Tyler Kay for letting me live my dream. Dreams do come true, everyone. My mother at 705 Meet My Mother for more information must be getting popular because she appeared on the Expressive Mom podcast with me. My mother at 705 Meet My Mother for more information must be getting popular because she appeared on the Expressive Mom podcast with Miriam Rachel, but she's not the only one, since I went on the Unbox on Purpose podcast with Barbara Brihan. What two awesome podcasts to be on. Now, folks, we wrap back. We're going to hear from the V's Barbershop of Bloomington, so let's get to it. Located on the popular college road in Bloomington, Indiana, V's Barbershop of Bloomington is the place to be. V's of Bloomington provides you history with a contemporary spin. Everything from the real barber chairs to our relaxing neck and head massages and our classic hot foam and straight edge razor cut. They encourage you to experiment with your hairstyle alternatives if you're going for a more modern man's hairstyle or a classic short haircut. This place is even autism friendly because the owner and the staff have done the research on how to give your child with autism a haircut safely. But it's not only one of Bloomington, it's worldwide because there are some in places such as Las Vegas and Arrowhead, Oklahoma. These barber shop does not only have the barber shop, but it has a shop where you can buy irons for your beard. That is not all. They even have an app you can download. Well, they'll call it 812-332-4897. That's 812-332-4987 to get your hair trimmed today. All right, folks, we're back. You won't see Barbara, but you will see Barber at the V. All right, folks, we're back. You won't see Barbara, but you'll see Barber at the V's Barbershop of Bloomington. Today, we have someone very special to me, and that is Katie Deckard from Expierencing VU. Since 2022, Katie has been the director of Expierencing VU, located at Vincennes University. Katie holds a doctorate in education through the University of Southern Indiana and a bachelor's degree in secondary special education and mild interventions from Indiana University. Katie is a huge supporter of universal design for learning and now enjoys coaching and mentoring students in college with disabilities after spending 7 years as a high school teacher. Katie loves to spend time on the farm with her newlywed husband, Colby, and their dog, Mabel, when she's not working. Let's welcome the kind-hearted Katie Deckard to the podcast. Katie, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Sam, doing pretty good.
I'm glad you're doing well myself. So my first question to you is, what does being in a program involving students with disabilities mean to you?
Well, it's I would say probably the most fun job I've ever had, because I used to be a high school teacher, and um, I feel like with that type of job, there were a lot more restrictions as far as the amount of time that we could work with the students. And so in the college setting, especially in a program like TRIO, there's just a lot more time that you have to work with the students and a lot more flexibility as well.
Right, and I agree with you. And It's not like you clock in and clock out from 9 to 3. You have from to 4:30 most days. That's a long time to be with students, which isn't bad. I'm just saying it's longer compared to high school.
Yeah, it's nice too that we have such a great staff. So it's not just me working with the students. I'm just so blessed to have such a wonderful staff of people who care just as much as I do about working with students with various disabilities and strengths and challenges. And we have coaches, mentors, and tutors, and everyone is there for the students. And so that's also just another kind of fun part of the job, not only the students, but just that we have the wonderful staff as well.
It's like my best friend's motto because see 142 Identical Yet Opposites by BJ Yoho, but he's a Riley kid and they always say FTK. Maybe we should change that K to an S. FTS for the students.
Right.
Now, why don't you tell us some about your staff? You mentioned there were other members of the Experience VU staff, which we'll get into.
Yeah, so we have coaches. We have Rebecca Roach, who has worked at Vincennes University for over 30 years. So anytime a student has a question that I don't know how to answer, usually Rebecca, just because of her experience, usually she'll know at least where to point the student in the right direction. And she's just got such a great ability to listen and to talk with students, and also to encourage them to get back on the right track. She works with a lot of our students who are on academic probation and kind of helps them figure out maybe what went wrong in the past, what barriers existed, and she was really good at helping them explore strategies, um, basically to get back on the right path, to be successful at VU. We have Shannon Green, who is one of our fantastic coach mentors. She's also just, I always tell people, just our English guru. She does a lot of tutoring. If you can't find her in your office, you can usually find her in the tutoring lab. And again, just a heart of gold and just lots of experience working with kids with disabilities. Shannon taught elementary school for a long time before she came to VU, and she actually taught writing and English courses at VU before she transitioned over to working for the TRIO programs. So she's just got a lot of experience, and just anytime you're having a bad day, she's just a great person to go and talk to because she always has a funny joke or a funny story about her kids, and definitely is just great at putting a smile on people's faces. Um, we have Olivia Simmons, who is our student service specialist, and she's kind of my right-hand person, helps me with my budget, and just all kinds of office um, parts of the job that organization is not one of my strong suits. So I'm lucky to have Olivia to help me with that. And then she also she got her bachelor's in psychology less than a year ago. So she started working with students recently as well. We're trying to transition her into that role as well now that she has her bachelor's. And then the tutors, we have Jane Carey, Kathy Strange, just wonderful math tutors. Those are both former math instructors at VU. And then we have some wonderful peer tutors that are education students as well. So, like I said, we're definitely blessed. We definitely have a wonderful staff. I've had a couple tutors come and go, since my time at VU. Some that we're sad to let go. Jonas, in the last year, he was such a great addition to our staff. But always, like I said, just having the people I've learned over the years is just such an important aspect of having the kind of program that we want to have at VU to support our students. 'Cause I
What were
can't
your
do it
initial?
alone.
No, you can't do it alone. That is hard to do. You only got so many arms, as they say. What were your initial thoughts when you decided you're going to be involved in a program that had students with disabilities?
Well, that's kind of been my career. As I mentioned earlier, I taught high school for 7 years, and I taught students who were on diploma track, students who had IEPs, but they were on diploma track. And I did a lot of inclusion, a little bit of self-contained, mostly English, when I taught high school. And when I learned about an opportunity at another college to coordinate accommodations for students at the college level, kind of piqued my interest. So I kind of went out on the ledge and took a leap of faith and interviewed, and it was a lot to learn because the laws are different between K-12 and college as far as working with students with disabilities. And there was a lot to learn, but I loved it. I absolutely loved the college setting, working with the students at that level. I was the person who the students would bring in their documentation, and I was responsible for approving them to have like things like extra time on exams and note taking, and basically just accommodations was my job. But then when I learned about this opportunity at Vincennes University, this trio program, what I learned is that students um, worked in the pro or were in the program and needed tutoring and other support, but the accommodations piece would not have been my responsibility. And I saw that as an opportunity to use my teaching background again, which I was really interested in and kind of looked forward to. So that's why I said earlier, this is my favorite job that I've ever had, because I get to, I still get to teach. We often find ourselves, well, the tutoring piece, I still get to tutor every once in a while, but also the coaching piece. We often are working with students on just learning how to be organized, learning how to be a college student, right? Because there's so many changes, as you know, from high school to college. And I'm really passionate about that transition piece and helping students navigate that bridge from high school to college. And this program that we have, Experience VU, is the perfect opportunity to help students with that. So yeah, so that was when that's kind of what your question was, what kind of piqued my interest was, just getting to use all aspects uh, of my strengths, my talents, what I'm interested in. And not, like I said earlier, not having those restrictions like I had, being a high school teacher. There was just a lot of paperwork, a lot of administrative, and there still is, don't get me wrong, but it's just different. College is just a different place
Avenue
to be. Yeah, yeah.
is your word for you. So you're talking about coaching. What are some of the ways you coach and mentor your students?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, when I worked in my last job, when I was the accommodations coordinator, I was often finding myself wanting to help students find the solution, right? Or giving them the solution. They would come in with a problem and I would give them a solution. And what I've learned in my coaching training, I've learned how to ask questions to empower and encourage students to try to think of those solutions on their own. And it's a really cool experience when you kind of, and it's a shift in mindset. Sometimes you want to jump to being the fix it person, right? You want to jump to, well, you're unorganized. Why don't you use a planner? Why don't you use your Google Calendar on your phone? Just you want to jump to immediately giving them solutions. But with coaching, um, it's just really powerful to get to know the student, to ask questions and be curious and trying to figure out what's going on surrounding the challenge that they're experiencing, and then asking them questions to try to help them develop a solution that's going to work, because I'm not them, right? I don't know what works best for them, but they do. And once you get to the college level, students are at that point a little more capable of, right, they've gone through high school, they know what works and what doesn't work for them. So who am I to sit there and tell them what will and will not work? So that's what I love about coaching is, you're just kind of there as the facilitator, the encourager, right, to get them to think about their own solution. And
Plus,
then
it's
there
not
is
fair to
some.
make an assumption when you've only known them for a few minutes. They've been in school and know themselves for 12 years. You know them and can
Absolutely.
be, you know them and figure out their learning style within a few seconds. That's not right.
Right. So that's one of my big takeaways as far as the coaching training that I've had. And also just what I love about it. I just see it to be it works, with students. And also that accountability piece, students, myself, I need accountability. We all do. So our program, Experience VU, kind of gives us the time and the flexibility. If students do, sometimes they might just want to meet once or twice a week. Sometimes they might want to meet every day or once a semester, so we really have that flexibility to meet the students where they are. I think in our mission statement, we call ourselves student centered. And what that means is, you know, whatever the student needs is what we provide. It's not a cookie cutter formula that we provide. It's basically, these are the resources that we have, and how is the student going to fit in with those resources? Not a, you know, a prescription formula that they have to abide by. I always tell students there's not a certain set of activities or times that they have to meet with us. Obviously, if a student isn't doing well in their classes, we're going to be seeing them more, right? But yeah, that's as far as your question was the coaching piece. But
All right.
um,
Well, I'm going to
yeah,
actually ask you to get in our brains for a minute. And this is how, based on your observations, how do you think a student who has a disability brain operates?
how the brain operates. Well, everybody's different. Whether someone has a diagnosis or not, I think all of our brains operate different. Um, so, and I've always kind of viewed um, labels, diagnoses as just one piece, one element of a person's identity, not the end all be all. Especially once you get to know a person, you realize, yeah, that's a label, and that label helps to uh understand better, maybe characteristics or whatever. But like I said, it's not the end all be all. Um, and I've just always envisioned that, everyone's brain, they have neural pathways, they have ways that the information goes into the brain and then information comes out of the brain, right? But that's different. And some people, um, you know, they might have more twists and turns of those pathways that their brain has to navigate, information. I've always kind of envisioned students who have maybe trouble like processing, maybe reading, for example. Maybe a student reads a text and it just doesn't, the first or second time, it just doesn't makes sense to them. But then maybe hearing it, you add that element of hearing the text and seeing it at the same time, and it computes a lot faster. It processes in the brain a lot faster. And it just has to do with the way that our brains are wired.
Right. It's the
Um,
same way with me with a textbook. So with me in
yeah,
textbooks,
yeah,
I rather prefer to hear it because Here's the problem with me with textbooks. It's not the fact that I get bored. They're so jumbled. Have you noticed like textbooks are very jumbled? The
Yeah,
spacing's kind of off. It's like when it's not like
right,
double spaced, and then when it's not double
right,
spaced, I'm on the wrong line.
right. Yeah, like I said, it just has to do with, we're all different. Not that it's not good or bad, it's just different. And I think our what I've learned working with students all these years is that I think I think this is one of my challenges that I had. I didn't know that this was happening when I taught high school, but looking back, now I kind of see that sometimes in schools, even in colleges, this happens. We have this cookie cutter, this box, right, that we want students to fit in, and that's just not how it works. Some people do fine in that box and they thrive in that box, but some people, they need to get out of that box, right? They need other ways of taking in knowledge and demonstrating their knowledge. And that's just not always feasible, or I guess allowed. Not all people embrace that idea in the traditional school setting. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of universal design for learning, because the whole point of universal design is that as long as you are flexible in being able to, or being open to manipulating or changing just anything. It can be the physical space, it can be the classroom, it can be electronic, right? As long as you're being open to changing that to, to meet someone else, different learning styles, and the way that people basically take in information and demonstrate information, um, and then everyone's going to have an opportunity. And, when if you think about, I always give the example of, the buttons to open a door for someone in a wheelchair. Well, I'm not in a wheelchair, but I use that button all the time when I have my hands full, Um, so universal design, it doesn't just help people with disabilities, it helps everybody. It makes life more accessible for everybody. And that's, in the classroom as well. Um, I've never been a fan of traditional multiple choice, true, false, the way that college students are often assessed. That's just not good for anybody, especially students with disabilities.
No, and I'll tell you
They're
this much: if you jam them in that box, they're not going in willingly. You're going to be doing a lot of pushing to get them in there. Let me put it
Yeah,
that way.
so there's just so much opportunity. There's so much intelligence. Um, but sometimes you just have to figure out how to just get out, like I said, get out of that box. There are ways, especially with all the technology that we have nowadays. Yeah, we definitely don't need to remain in that box, as far as it's kind of just I guess a comparison that I'm using. I'm not literally talking about a box, but
I
I'm,
think we all figured that.
I think
From your
you know what I'm
perspective,
talking
can you
about.
tell us? So, from your perspective, can you tell us some of the ways people learn?
From my perspective, all kinds of ways. Um, Everybody's different. Um, some learn well, a lot of people I think learn well by doing, especially the generation I think that we're seeing now. Um, just doing, as you're learning, doing something with your hands, I think definitely helps for a lot of students. um some, they can simply just look at something, And some people are really good, my husband, for example, he's such a visual learner. Um, he can take apart something, a tractor or truck, and then he just knows between, I guess, seeing it and feeling it, he knows exactly how to put it back together. Um, so that's very much visual. He can just visualize it in his mind. I'm very much auditory. Um, I cannot look at something. I just don't have that visual photogenic piece. Like when I read something, a lot of times it doesn't really compute in my brain, but if I see it and I hear it at the same time, um, for some reason it clicks better. Um, so I mean, yeah, you have those three ways, but I think usually it's a combination. Um, and then not only the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, but um, the combination, but also, in demonstrating knowledge. I think um, there's just so many ways for a person to show what they know, to demonstrate, what they have. And a lot of times I tell people, um, well, students specifically, a lot of times if they're worried about the stigma tied to accommodations, I might say, well, think about it in terms of, um, you know, you have the ability, right? You have the cognitive, you have the intelligence, right? Your brain, you can learn, but sometimes you have to change the environment. You have to change the way that you put that information into your brain to get it into that long-term memory so that you can recall it later on. And it may change, like we were talking about note taking recently. Well, some students literally, like, they cannot listen to someone talking and then write or type.
Hey,
Like
that's me. That's me.
their
That's me. That's
brain,
me.
well, that's why I thought of that example. Um, some people, just because of the way that their brain works, they cannot do both at the same time. They can do one or the other. But if you figure out a way to change the environment for someone, um, such as recording, something that you're listening to, that way you can really pay attention to it and listen really well. But then maybe you need notes, right? Well, then you have that recording, and then later on you can go listen to that recording and take your own notes from it. And there's different varying levels of how that could work. Um, I'm not a real big fan of just recording straight from beginning to end and having to extract notes. Um, like I said, there's lots of different technology out there nowadays to assist with that. But even test taking, a student might, in the big classroom with lots of people, with a clock counting down in the front. I mean, that's just not conducive to being able to demonstrate knowledge. But put yourself in a room by yourself. You have the opportunity to read things out loud if you need to, or maybe you need it read to you. There's lots of technology now that can read things aloud to you. You get rid of all of that external stimuli. Um, and some people, giving like extra time is a common accommodation in college. And I think some people view that as, oh, you're just giving them a leg up. Well, no, some students literally have to read a question 3 or 4 times before their brain processes it. That doesn't give them a leg up, it just gives them access because they know the material, but they need to read the question 3 or 4 times to be able to show their professor that they know, that they get it, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's just changing the environment.
It's the
And that
same way
that's
with me as a clock. you cannot put the clock in the same room or it goes south really quickly. I'm more
Right,
focusing on the time getting it done than the assignment. What do you
right,
want me to do? The assignment or look at the time?
right, right. So everybody's different, and I just think we all need to, even people who don't have a diagnosis or a label, there everybody has strengths and challenges and ways that they do things the way that they do. So
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am. So I want to talk to you more about Experience VU. So do you see any growth in the experience? Let's try again. Do you see any growth in the students who use Experience VU? If so, what does the growth look like?
Absolutely. I think we've had students come through the program that might not have graduated, um, because the tutoring that we offer, it's not necessarily one-on-one tutoring. It can be, depending on how busy we are. Sometimes we have a couple students in the tutoring lab at one time, and the tutor might have to, bounce from one student to another and take turns. And sometimes we might not be busy at all. And then the student does get a lot more of that one-on-one attention. The coaching, those appointments can be one-on-one. But I just think that our program provides such a, not only the tutoring and the academic, resources, but just that sense of belonging. Everyone, all humans need a place where they can belong and feel welcome and a part of something. And I think when you go from high school to college, finding your niche it can be a challenge. And I think that Experience VU, because of the resources that we are allowed to provide, um, we are able to provide that welcoming, supportive environment where students can feel um, like they belong, and I think that's been huge for several of our students that have come through the program.
Sorry to
Because if
interrupt
you
you, but
don't,
I'll just say I'm one of them. I am one
well,
of those students.
yeah, I mean, if you don't feel like a part of something, you're not going to stay. So I do. I think that's a big piece of it. We do a lot of workshops and coaching on um, helping students, like I mentioned, niche, the word niche earlier. And sometimes it's hard for students to figure out um, what they want to do. It's hard to, for some, it's easy to figure out a major and what they want to do in life, but for others it's like, I'm only 18, 19 years old. I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life, and sometimes that can be really scary. So we just try to encourage students. We try to get them um, connected with the right resources on campus. We have a fantastic career center on campus. They work with the students to find something, maybe not what they're going to do the rest of their life, but at least some place to start. Um, we really value goal setting in our program. Our students, when they first start out in the program, we do some activities with goal setting, academic, financial. Um, and we try to, monitor that and make sure students are just cognizant of that, because we feel like, we just feel like that's a valuable activity that we do with our students. We do a lot of workshops that involve financial literacy, budgeting. Um, there's just a lot, like I said, a lot of change. It's kind of like you graduate high school and then you have to be an adult right away. So we just try to support wherever we can, um, depending on what the student needs. And I absolutely think that we have helped a lot of students. I know Shannon, she's worked with quite a few students that have failed English multiple times, or math. We have our tutors work with students who have failed multiple times. And our tutors, they've been around for a while, and they're patient. They're really good at figuring out how the student learns as far as their learning style and meeting the student where they're at. Um, and it's different. I think it's different if you go to which I'm not knocking. We have fantastic tutoring labs all across campus, right, for all students at VU, and I'm not knocking those, but I think it's just different when our students with learning challenges, when they meet with our experience VU tutors, um, our tutors just they have that experience, that background of working with people who learn differently, and so they are more patient, more open to, getting to know the student, figuring out how they learn, rather than just giving like one or two cookie cutter answers.
Well, I
If
might
that
get
makes
in trouble for this, but how can you get mad at them for it? They're sweet elderly ladies. You cannot get mad at them. They're just the nicest people out there.
Yeah, and it's really cool that they, even though they're not in the classroom anymore, they have taught all the math classes at VU, so they know the curriculum, they know what's expected as far as the math. Um, so yeah, we're really, really lucky to have the tutors that we have.
Right. Well, I gotta ask you, Katie, about me. So, what were your initial thoughts of me when you first saw me using Experience VU? I guess I'm asking first
Yeah.
impressions.
Yeah, it took me a while to get to know you. I remember when you were in the study skills, um those meetings that we have, in the very beginning, and I remember you were outgoing. I remember thinking you were outgoing, willing to speak up, I guess, and interact with Shannon, who was the instructor at that time. But yeah, it really took me a while to get to know you. Um, so I mean, now I know, you've got a heart of gold and just one of the most genuine people I've ever met. But yeah, it took me a little bit to get to know you.
I know now we know one thing. You say yourself, and I'll make now it's becoming a joke at this point. I overthink everything, which you're not wrong.
Well, there's that.
I'll admit it. I will 100% admit it. I'm not the most happy from, but my family it comes from the family too. We overthink
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Once I learned that about you, um, I was definitely better able to have conversations with you and to encourage you that everything's okay, everything's gonna be all right. But we're all overthinkers to some extent, right?
To a point, yeah. So, how do you so what okay, here we go. What have the experienced VU students taught you?
Ooh, good question. Um, as a whole, just that, hmm, what have they taught me? Well, I've kind of always, in this particular job, um, and I think this this motto or this philosophy has stood the same over time, and I think the students um, have definitely encouraged me in this too. Is um, kind of that tortoise and hare, you know, metaphor, simile, analogy, whatever it is, that story of the tortoise and the hare, um, there's no sense in trying to rush things because it's okay. Sometimes in the past, I would find myself as a leader of the program comparing myself to other trio programs and all the great and wonderful activities that they were having. But what I've seen from the students is growth, is success, um, and just so much appreciation, so much gratitude from our students. And I know Sam, you've been able to experience along with me, the growth that we've seen in the program. It was a lot different. The program just was a lot different when I first started a couple years ago. So I just would always tell myself, just be the tortoise, Katie. Just be the tortoise, slow and steady. You will have victory, you will have success. It's just going to take time. And I think the students every day, they teach me that, we have challenges, we have setbacks every day. And I know, students come to us every day with you know, oh, I did bad on this test, or I did bad on this assignment, or I'm having this roommate issue, or this issue with my professor, and it's okay. Like, we with time, we can figure things out, and things will get better with time. Growth will happen. And not only in the program, but in the students in their lives as well. I've been able to witness that. Things just take time. You just got
Right.
to be
And the
patient.
program
And you
shows human errors, I feel like, too, but also human generosities, I think is the word I'm looking for.
right,
Because
right,
getting along with the professor, not getting along with the professor shows you're not going to like everybody.
right, right, right. I mean, life skills you're learning, but everybody does. I mean, we're all human, right? We make mistakes every day, but yeah, the important thing is that we try to reflect, we try to learn, okay, this is what I did. What will I do different the next time? But yeah, just that slow growth, that victories, success doesn't happen overnight. And you just got to be patient with yourself. And I've seen that, not only in this job, but other jobs that I've had working with students with disabilities. Um, it takes time. It takes hard work. That grit sometimes, that grit of I just got to keep going. I can't give up. And it may take me twice as long or three times as long to do something than the person next to me, but if I don't give up, I will get there, and the victory will be so much sweeter.
Right. And it's easier to enjoy more, I feel like, when you're the tortoise, because when you're the tortoise, you can look around and like
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the scenery. Whereas the
Right.
rabbit, you don't have time to look around. You're just like boom, 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 boom.
Right.
Who can go
Yeah.
in that
So
pace?
there's just a lot. I love that story, and I really feel like I'm living it. So
Yeah, we just might need to get the rabbit to slow down a little bit, then we'll be good to go, right?
that's right.
Uh,
I don't want to be the rabbit.
no. So, how do you see experience for you growing in the future?
Well, an area that I would like to focus on over the next year or two is I mentioned transition earlier, and I want to build more into the program for students at the very beginning. We do have the study skills. We have it's like 6 weeks. We meet with students for an hour, and we provide just general navigating college, study skills, financial literacy, just things we feel like are important for them to know. But I want to implement something that happens even before that. It would be optional, but it would be something where students could join us before school starts. Maybe not for several days, but I'm thinking just 1 or 2 days. Students move in early, and we really get to spend time with them on advocacy and how to work with your professor, and just having more time with them before classes start. I feel like is a goal that it's something that I need to develop. There's a lot of a lot of hoops you have to go through to implement something like that. But it's a goal, something that I want to see happen in the next couple of years, and just continue just staying abreast of assistive technology, because that's always changing and improving, and just being able to continue to provide students with resources that can assist them. But yeah, just really really interested in that transition piece.
All right. Well, let me ask you about students who I don't want to say are bad students, but are scared students. Let's call it that. So, how do you work with students who, let's just say we have Tom. Okay, let's try that again. So, how do you work with students who are scared to go up. Like we have Tom, who's never socialized, who is on the autism spectrum, ADHD. Maybe he also has CP, spina bifida to go with it, but he's never socialized because of the fear or because of not knowing, or people just gave him the boot all the time.
So how would I encourage a student like that?
Yeah, or others. Like, have you encouraged other students similar to him?
Oh, okay. I think the program is set up to support students. Like I said earlier, students have the opportunity to plug in as much or as little as they want. It is a pretty inviting place. I think once our students meet with us a few times, um, I think that they will get to experience that welcome feeling, the kindness, um, because the staff is really, really kind and really welcoming, but also I think the other students um, that we have, students that come um, use our space every day, and we have others that might come once a semester. Um, but yeah, I mean, I have a student in mind, that's very shy, doesn't really like to talk to people. Um, but I've seen him up there multiple times in the last few weeks. So I think that just the way that the program is set up, um, we encourage students to, we have we don't just have the tutoring, we have a lounge where students, they can sit and talk, they can do puzzles together, they can play games. And, even sometimes our tutors will sit in there and interact with the students. And I think that I've seen students partake in that atmosphere, and it's like, wow, people are nice to me here, and it makes them want to continue to come back.
Right.
We
I
have
agree.
a text, yeah, we have a text messaging feature. We have a software that we use, and we can send out, so we often send out text messages to students, when we have food or something special going on. And that often attracts students as well. And then they can kind of interact with us, interact with the other students, and see that it's different. It's just so different than high school.
It is. I'll
So,
be honest. I know which student you're talking about, and I'm not going to say his name, but I'll tell you this: the student is opening up to me. I think I'm
yeah.
the only one out of two people he's opening up. This student is opening up to. So I think I know who you're talking about,
Yeah. And I
which
just
is a
really
good sign.
appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah.
Not a problem. I thought you might want to be updated. So I want to talk to you a little bit. I want to talk. So now, what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about your college a little more. So, while you were getting a doctorate or a bachelor's degree, were there any surprising facts you learned in college when you were getting those degrees? If so, could you please name one?
Um, well, it was actually a master's. I have started a doctorate, but I um had some pretty big life change that kind of put that on hold, between getting a new job and getting married and moving. Couldn't keep up with the doctorate, but my so you said something that I learned that was surprising, or
Yeah, something you
like,
learned in your college life while you were getting your degree that was surprising.
oh goodness. Um,
Didn't I make
making
you
me
think? Didn't I?
Yeah, making me think back several, because I it was a long time ago that I did that. Um, hmm. You mean in as far as something that I learned in my classes, or
Yeah,
just my
something you
own
learned. Something
personal?
you learned in your classes where you're just like, "Whoa, I didn't know anything about that."
Oh, I'm sure that there was. I took a lot of classes about the law, special education law and disability law. Um, and I think that's always I think it's eye-opening to learn what the laws are and to realize how little people that you're working with understand their rights. I think sometimes, I mean, I think about right now, even, I mean, just the other day, I was talking with a student that, they tell me all the time, professors aren't following their accommodations. And I'm just astounded that that's just, they can't do that. That's against the law. So I think learning about the law was eye-opening. And also learning about the differences between the K-12 special education laws, and then colleges are not under IDEA. It's ADA, so just that shift in advocacy of what's expected of a student between high school and college, and in regard to um, obtaining what they need and having to advocate for themselves in college is so different. So I guess for me that was really big to learn all about that. And like I said, I've taken quite a few classes between my undergraduate degree at IU and then when I did my master's at USI. Yeah, that's a lot to learn, but it is pretty eye-opening.
Yeah. I
And
bet
then
your
what
peers tutors will agree. I bet your peer tutors would agree with you because they're
right,
in
right,
education. So I bet
right.
they're learning stuff. They're like, whoa, I did not know this about the brain of someone with autism or the brain of someone with this condition. Because I think right now they're taking a special education class, or they were.
Right. Well, actually, something about ADHD that I learned, and I'm not sure when I learned this. I feel like it was more recent, and because I've taken a lot of coaching classes, coaching professional development, and just to learn that, our brains really don't develop until we're far into our 20s, um, probably even later for others. But yeah, so it's no wonder that, college students might struggle with, decision making, right? Advocacy, self-determination, just making good choices. It's no wonder, right?
Right.
That college students might struggle as much as they do. Our brains are not, um, yeah, they're still developing. Another cool thing that I like to talk about is the idea of neuroplasticity, that our brains are constantly changing. I mean, just because you're not good at something doesn't mean you can't get good at it. You got to just do it, right? The more you do something, the more your brain um, will get better. When you're thinking about people, who are in car accidents and things like that, having to do rehabilitation and, learn how to walk again. Well, that's the brain, learning how to do it again. And the same applies, in learning challenges. Just because
It's
you're
like our
not good at
taste buds are changing. Kind of. It's like your taste buds in your brain are changing.
Well, I think about math. A lot of times students say, well, I've never been good at math. Well, it's like playing a sport. The more you practice it, the better you're going to get at it. And your brain, it can learn, it can develop. Um, so, yeah, I like to talk about that. That's something that I learned in one of my coaching classes about
Oh,
ADHD.
I
So,
appreciate you bringing that up. Maybe one
yeah.
day maybe one day it'll encourage me to eat a tomato from the garden because no, I have not done that so far. Too nasty for me.
Yeah, well, there's that, right? Yeah.
Now, folks, we right back when you hear from the Proper Bully Tattoo Society. So let's get to it. If you're looking to get some new ink on your skin, you should stop by at the Proper Bully Tattoo Society in Bedford, Indiana. This shop is also organic, and since it has local ownership, the artists who work there ensure that every customer has an unforgettable time. The artists are also major proponents of mental health, therefore you should be too. The Proper Bully Tattoo Society also has merchandise such as t-shirts and hats. So events that are coming up is the Recovery Awareness Flash and 8 Weekends of Halloween Flash. Don't forget to go to the properbullytattoosociety.com to see the artist portfolio or call 812-272-1456. 1596. That's 812-272-1956 to schedule an appointment. Their hours are Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. But Sundays are only for appointments. I'll leave you with this. Whether you are sobbing or jumping for joy, you will say, all right, folks, we're back. If you're going to be a bully at this place, I'll allow it, but you may be a proper bully if you're going to be at this place. So, Katie, you're talking about the college laws. Why don't you tell us some of them? I'm kind of interested.
Well, essentially, at the college level, when it comes to students with disabilities, you have the Section 504 Act, 1973, which basically says, you know, you can't, you know, students have to have access, like in the learning environment and, you know, the physical space on campus. But then also the 1990, and then it's been amended since then, you know, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And, you know, there's even more recent, which I haven't, been following it since I've been working at VU, since I'm not doing accommodations. But when I left my last job, there was a lot going on in the world of like computers and electronic accessibility. At that point in time, there were not any laws around, you know, the online space, but there were definitely, well, in the online space, it had to be accessible, right? That's the ADA Section 504. You know, if you have a student who is deaf, you know, taking an online class and you have videos, you have to provide captions for those videos, you know, things like that. They have to be able to have access. But there wasn't like any laws around online, you know, practices. Whereas like I said, I know that there was a lot of changes going on with the online space. Things like, you know, just like best practices to use, you know, in the online space as far as, or just electronic, like screen readers. A lot of people use screen readers, right? And if it's like an image, it won't be read aloud. It has to be like a readable PDF, you know, and a lot of places online, you know, you can't, screen readers won't work. So just, you know, companies, businesses, schools, you know, need to be aware of that. But yeah, the biggest change, you know, from high school to college is in high school, the laws are around success. So students, the IEPs were written so that students could be successful to get to graduation. So if that meant like modifying something like, you know, a multiple choice exam, instead of having 4 possible options, get that broken down to 2. Like that's a modification, right? Or even in the curriculum, you know, the student might not have to do as much, you know, as long as they show mastery of the standards, maybe they don't have to do quite as much, you know, that's a modification. But in college, under the ADA Section 504, which Section 504 applies to all like K-12 and colleges. But IDEA is only for K-12, and then ADA covers, you know, colleges and then also the workplace. Like if someone needs accommodations in the workplace, that would be under ADA. And that's all geared toward access. People need access. And so, yeah, that's really the big difference. So in college, you can't really get your exams modified, but you might be able to get extra time, because that would allow someone, or maybe change the environment that would be more geared toward access versus success. It's a complete shift in mindset.
Right. And you have to be the one to do it too. That's a big difference right there. You got to be the one to speak up. And as I talked about once, self-advocating, C247, apply yourself for more information.
Right.
So there's something else I want to ask you about. So one of the things I noticed about you, and this is an admirable trait because I am not this. I couldn't think of the word to think about it, but then I figured out a word. So it's mellow slash calming people I
Uh-huh.
ever met, which is a compliment. Not to bash you. That's really cool. I'm not that person. As you can tell, I'm very spazzy, like my mother. So where does this calming slash mellow personality come from? Does the apple not fall far from the tree? Is your family pretty calm? Or do I just not see it? Because it's very hard for me to imagine you getting worked up.
Hmm. I think I've always been that way. I'm not sure about my family. Yeah, I don't know. I've never really thought about where that comes from. Um, I think I've always had just a servant's heart, just wanting to help others, but I've also been just really patient my whole life, and I've known that about myself, and I'm not really sure where that comes from. Um, but yeah, I mean, I do get worked up, but I think maybe more at home. Maybe and not so much at work. Maybe I hide it. So I am just like everybody else, Sam. But yeah, that's a really, I don't know if I can answer that question of where that comes from and why that is a personality trait. I think we are a product of somewhat of our environment, but also just genetics too, so maybe it's a combination. I'm not really sure, but I
Maybe.
appreciate that
Oh,
I
you're welcome.
appreciate that compliment.
You are
That
welcome.
is really
I'm very
kind.
mellow too, but when something gets me going, I get going. I
Yeah.
think you've seen it.
Oh yeah. We all have our moments. Me too. Me included. You might
Yes,
not see it at work, but
yeah, yes, ma'am. Now, folks, we right back. We're gonna hear from Great White Smoke. So let's get to it. In the town of Bloomington, Indiana, you can find the best barbecue meat at Great White Smoke. Owned by Dave White, Great White Smoke offers meat catering for events such as weddings and birthday parties. They've won awards such as the 2021 number one food truck in America Grand Champion and the 2019 Kentuckyana Barbecue Pit Masters King of the Q. If you're looking for someone to cook meat for your event, then Dave is your guy. Book them for your next event at 812-229-7571. You can drop them an email on their contact page as well. All right, folks, we're back. You definitely hear smoke on the water. There's a fire in the sky, should you choose to go there. So, can you want to talk to you a little more about your personal life, actually? So, can you tell me about your newlywed husband, Colby, and your dog, Mabel?
yeah, sure. Colby and I met in 2020 online, like many people do nowadays, and we decided to get married in the fall of 2022, and then we just got married. Actually, it'll be a year this coming November. So, he is a farmer. He's actually out farming today. They do corn and soybeans. I'm actually from Evansville, but on our second date, he told me not to freak me out or try to get real serious right away, but he basically told me that if I were to continue to date him, that I would have to be willing to move someday because you can't move the farm. So that's why I had to get a new job and had to move um, because I married a farmer who did not live in Evansville. Um, but yeah, he's a great guy, and we have a lot of things in common. And he actually has a dog as well. My dog Mabel, I've had her for several years. Um, and she's a half Australian Shepherd, half healer. She was actually a cattle herd dog for a while. My sister actually raises cattle, so Mabel was a cattle dog, but just was real shy, real timid. And my sister decided that she just wasn't really doing her job very well, and she just needed to have a person to love on. And several years ago, that became me. That's how she became a part of my life. And then my husband has an Australian Shepherd named, we call him Bo, and they get along okay. Mabel stays inside and Bo stays outside.
Maybe they communicate by going, "Where are you? Woo woo," something like that. Maybe that's what they do through the
Yeah.
window.
Well, Bo's pretty young. He's about 2, and Mabel's 9. And so she tolerates him, but I don't think she likes him very much.
Well, you're talking about farm work. Have you had to do any work on the farm? If so, what work have you done?
Not a lot. I generally watch. Sometimes I'll ride in the tractor. The other day I rode in the combine for a little while, but occasionally it's more probably moral support than physical. But occasionally I'll get out there and I'll hold something or go get something. And do a lot of the more of the traditional I cook and I clean and I support in that way, right?
Right. Well, I know
I
how it is with farm work. You can tell your husband this. We actually have a hay farm, so we actually know the work. I've had to do many times throwing hay bales on a trailer as a child, which I actually
Yeah,
enjoyed though. It's definitely more
yeah, I
enjoyable
mean,
than going to the gym for me.
yeah, it's definitely a physical job. Um, and yeah, physically demanding, but it's also I've really enjoyed learning. There's just so much to learn about it. It's very interesting.
Right. Well,
So,
speaking of gym, speaking of gym, you also go to the gym and work out. So, what obstacles do you face most in your quest to maintain your fitness?
I would say for that, I probably do that more to maintain my mental health than my physical. I mean, physical is as you get older is, definitely important. But I've always found that exercise helps me, and maybe that's why I'm good at staying calm, right? But yeah, I like to go. We're really lucky at VU. They provide a trainer for the staff, and she comes 3 times a week during the lunch hour. And so we are allowed to go work with her. She has like these circuits set up, these whiteboards where she has different exercises for us to do. And I just enjoy that. It kind of helps break up the day, gets my heart rate up. Um, and it's just, like I said, it's a wonderful benefit that VU provides to the staff. And I get to see other staff when I'm out doing that as well. I used to run a lot, but my knees just can't really take that anymore. But like I said, I just find that it helps me so much in my mental health, exercise does. So
Right.
highly recommend if anybody's stressed or feeling a lot of anxiety, get outside, go for a walk. Makes a
Yes.
huge difference.
Yes, ma'am. Well, how do you respond to setbacks or times when you're not motivated to work out?
Oh, well, that happens every week. It is a challenge, but just try to say, all right, next time, I maybe didn't do what I wanted to today, but there's always tomorrow, right? We can choose to do better tomorrow. Um, and I also do well, I have people that encourage me. The trainer, her name is Shelly. On occasion, she'll reach out to me if she hasn't seen me in a while, and hey, miss you, had good, you know, would love to see you again. And I respond really well to that accountability as well.
Right. Well, I think one of your students means a lot to you too, and I can tell it. It's not me, but it's I don't think he'll care to say his name. I make fun of him a lot anyway. Your crazy neighbor, Trey. So,
Yeah.
how would you describe Trey from your perspective?
Oh yeah, great guy. Just seen a lot of growth and change in him, just like all the other students, and just really enjoy having just all of you, um, having you guys in our program, and you all we see you pretty often throughout the week, and it's just nice. It's nice having such a nice group of students that keep us company, throughout the week. You included. I would say
Right.
you're part of that.
I hope I am. I think I am, though, based on what I've seen. Now, folks, we
Yeah.
wrap back right here an ad from the Rock 96.1 radio station, so let's get to it. We want to thank 96.1 The Quarry, especially David and Dan Hayes, for being a gold sponsor for our Summerfest. 96.1 residents in Bloomington, Indiana, and like Autism Rocks and Rolls, they rock and roll too. Visit their website at rock961fm.com to hear them out. And when they're on the station, be sure to listen to them live on their website or catch them on the radio in your car. If you like Kiss, Queen, 80s rock, or ZZ Top, I think you have found your station. 96.1 also supports our veterans, so you should support them too. Visit 96.1. All right, folks, we're about to rock out to this radio station. So, Katie, we're going to wrap up here, and these are just for fun. So, what is your paradise meal or favorite food, and why is it your favorite?
My favorite meal? Ooh, I'm a big Italian person. Anything Italian. Bread, pasta, all the carbs.
Hey, you know what? I'll take it. Mac and cheese, I'll go with you on that one, too. So, what is your favorite movie or TV show, and why do you like it?
Oh, good question. Most recently, I have found a show on Netflix. It's called Heartland. And I've watched all the seasons. Just really got into that. It's about horses and um, just a family that you just kind of get to see their everyday, you know, good things and bad things, successes and challenges. And what I love though is there's just lots of horses in the show. So yeah, it's a great show. It's, pretty clean, pretty family oriented. So again, it's called Heartland on Netflix.
Heartland, I'm surprised you didn't say something like Yellowstone or something, because that has a lot of horses.
No, I never really got into that. My husband watched it, but I watched a couple episodes, but it was a little more on the violent side. And I just never really got into that. So,
Okay. So, what is your favorite vacation you've ever taken, and why did you enjoy that vacation very much?
oh, good question. My family, we've gone on a lot of beach vacations and just have just a lot of good memories with my family. My parents, for some reason, I don't know the reason, but they really like to go to a place in the Caribbean called St. Thomas. It's one of the U.S. Virgin Islands. And so they took us there a couple times growing up. And like I said, just such good family memories with those. It's fun to look at really old photos and reminisce. Love to be on the beach.
I can tell. Just don't go in the ocean too far for me, please. I don't want to see you eaten up by a shark. Just do that for
Me
me.
either.
So, my last question is: are any good memories that you want to tell our viewers about? If you do, why do you remember that memory the most? So, before you answer, I'd like you to end with something like sentimental that made you feel good inside. You forgot this world was a cruel place sometimes, and a funny memory that made you fall on the floor laughing. And it can be with experience for you, husband, dog. Your call. You want to answer it?
Making me think, Sam. Let's see. You said funny memory and then happy memory. Um, well, I can remember when I was in eighth grade. Well, I mentioned that I liked a show about horses. When I was in eighth grade, a week or so before Christmas, um, my sister had a horse back then, and she took me to the stables where her horse was, and she took me into a horse stall, and I had no idea who this horse was, or I knew nothing about it. And she looked at me and said, "This is your horse." And so that was a pretty cool memory. Took a while for me to process that basically what was happening is my parents were getting me a horse for Christmas that year. So that was pretty cool, pretty big, a lot of tears. That was a neat memory. And then a funny memory. Goodness. I would say, hmm, I when I went to IU, I met some really nice people, kind of like how you've been able to meet some nice people at VU. And I lived in the dorms, and some of those girls, we just had the best times. And I remember just laughing so much with some of my old, college friends. So I don't know, I can't really think of a specific time, but I
Do
just
you still
remember
keep in
laughing.
touch with your college friends times?
I do, yeah. Actually, two of them were in my wedding, were bridesmaids. So
Oh, okay. Well, that's
yeah,
awesome. Well,
yeah,
Katie,
yeah.
thank you so much for taking the time for me. I really appreciate it. Is there any closing remarks you'd like to say, or where can people find Experience VU too?
Yeah, no, I just really appreciate you having me. It's just fun to talk. Always fun to talk with you. We have a lot of conversations about um, just learning and universal design and all the possibilities out there. And yeah, we're at Vincennes University, and like I said, we're a trio program, federal grant program, and um, just real lucky to have the space that we have there in Davis Hall. So, yeah, again, thank you.
Is there a website? Do you have a website?
We do. It is experience v, or I'm sorry, it's venue.edu/experience VU.
All right.
And we
I'll make sure to
actually,
put that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Katie. Have a great day.
thank you, Sam. You too.